today's video, I am going to give you guys 3 reasons why the Chicago Bears are ready to take off in 2025. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. And we are going to begin with reason number 1. I believe they have fixed their biggest offensive issues. So in terms of like what their actual issues were last year, I think it was pretty obvious what they lacked on the offensive end. And I'm not saying the offense is perfect. We'll talk about here in just a minute. Offensive line was a huge issue for this team last year. They simply put did not have the offensive line to get the job done. You look at the coaching staff, I did not think the play calling was good enough to help this offense and really push them in the right direction. I believe they lacked a true RB1. I still think that's an issue. We'll talk in more detail here in just a moment. I also felt like even though, yes, you had Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze and DJ Moore, I just never felt like those guys meshed well with each other. And frankly, I did not ever think that the receiving core was big time difference makers. Keenan was a little bit too old. Rome was a rookie. I think that is improved. So let's start off with the offensive line. Obviously, the big addition was Joe Thuney. You also added in a Drew Dowman up the middle. You also added Jonah Jackson as your other guard. I think this offensive line is clearly much better from what it was last year. Now, we don't know who's going to play left tackle. I've heard there is a pretty big competition for that spot. Maybe it'll be Braxton. Maybe it'll be Ozzie. Maybe it'll be Kyron. We'll have to wait and see who wins that left tackle spot. Darnell Wright obviously sticks at right tackle. He seems to be getting a lot better year after year. So you look at this offensive line, compare it to what it was last year, and keep in mind that offensive line last year was genuinely one of the worst in the NFL, if not maybe the worst. I think they were up there with like the Seattles of the world. You went in there, you completely overhauled the interior of the offensive line. By the way, they did that overhauling within like a span of just about a week. So Ben Johnson and the GM, they stepped in there, realized they had an issue, and got the position fixed instantly. So I want to give them their flowers. I thought that was really smart of them to do, to just get it out the way. I think your tackles are very talented. Ozzie Trapillo is a guy that I'm a pretty big fan of. I like Braxton Jones. We'll see if he can stick. Darnell Wright, Kieran. We'll see kind of how it ends up working out. Darnell will obviously be your right tackle, but whoever plays left tackle, they're obviously going to pick the best one. This offensive line is significantly improved. I cannot overstate how important this new improved offensive line is going to be for this team, because last year for his rookie season, Caleb really struggled behind this offensive line. Now, I talked about running back. I do not think the running back room has been addressed in a good enough fashion. Now, I think this is something that they will push down the road, maybe at the trade deadline, maybe sometime next offseason. I'm not a DeAndre Swift guy. I never have been. I've always felt like he is best suited as a second option, specifically used a bit more in the passing game. You do have Roschon Johnson. You did draft Kyle Monangai. We'll see if those guys can really step up. Roschon has shown glimpses here and there, and as a Texas fan, I love the guy, but I just don't know if he's really, a true RB1. And then Kyle Monangai is also a bit more of a bruiser style guy. He's a do-it-all guy, though. Like, this is somebody that would do everything for you. He's just not a freakish athlete. He doesn't have elite, really anything, but he's a hard worker. I could see him end up kind of becoming something nice for this offense if it works out. That right there, the running back room is the one position that as of right now, I'm not feeling terribly confident in. Now, in terms of the receiving core, last year, in theory and on paper, it was a good receiving core. And in some ways, I think it was, improperly used, because you did have a Keenan Allen who could be a bit more of a slot guy, can win in the more intermediate routes, can be a nuanced guy. You have DJ Moore that can basically do everything, and then Rome Odunze could have been your deep threat. Unfortunately, it just never really worked out last year, whether it was due to injuries or just inconsistencies. DJ just didn't really have a great year last year, and Rome Odunze for his rookie season didn't have the year that maybe some of us thought he could have. So what did they do this offseason? Well, they said, okay, here's a Luther Burden. Oh, and here's a Colston Loveland, who's a receiving threat in the tight end room as well. Again, I'm not saying that the room was terrible last year, but I like the fact they did not just, become stagnant in the room. They didn't just sit on what they had. They improved the room. And I think they got 2 very talented pieces to add now alongside DJ and Rome and Cole Kmet as well, with Colston Loveland, who is a taller, lengthier, almost receiving-like build for a tight end. He doesn't really have to be used as a blocker, which is something that he's not very good at. But you will see a lot of 12 personnel packages where, he's playing alongside Cole Kmet, and they're going to probably do some run blocking, some pass blocking here and there too. And I think primarily he's going to be used as a receiving tight end that can run the seams, that can hit an out route, can do all these various things. Good athlete, good hands, made a lot of plays at Michigan. I think he might end up becoming sort of a safety safety blanket for Caleb Williams. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze stick around. I really do like that duo for the future. DJ being, again, kind of just a guy that could do everything in an offense, work the underneath, be somebody dominant in the screen game, can work the intermediate, can make a big splash play downfield. I don't think he's like the greatest wide receiver one in the NFL, but I think he's a top 20 wide receiver one, which is good enough. You pair him with the Rome Odunze, who's very talented and very young, who can win a bit more downfield, can make the 50-50 catches, can be a big explosive playmaker, and then you now add in a Luther Burden, who I think there is a level of similarity between a DJ and a Luther. Like, both guys are a little bit smaller, not to say big 50-50 ball winners. You know, they're going to make a lot of plays in the underneath and intermediate, but I think that Luther can play a bit more in the slot and DJ can kind of be flexible and play multiple positions. I do think 2-3 years down the road, if they were to ever get off of DJ Moore, Rome can step in as that wide receiver one, and then Luther can step in as that wide receiver two. For now, though, I think you have 3 really dynamic weapons with 2 very good tight ends and some really solid offensive linemen. I think the running back room is a little bit questionable, but I'm not terribly concerned about it. But arguably the biggest addition of the offseason was not an actual player. It was the addition of Ben Johnson. Now, from what I've heard, Ben Johnson has been pretty hard on this team. And I'm going to talk about Caleb Williams here in just a little bit. I'll talk to him about, a little bit towards the back end of the video. I do believe there is going to be a level of buy-in from this team that has to occur in order for this team to really take off like I think they can. Ben Johnson's system and Ben Johnson's coaching style, from what we know of it, is not a style that you can just throw at anybody. You have to really be bought into his system and to his style, like the Detroit Lions were. And if you can kind of adopt that personality and that mentality, then I think they're going to be really good. But if they refuse to, or if they just can't really adjust to it, then I kind of worry about them a little bit, especially with like the clashing of personalities and clashing of styles. All in all, though, Ben Johnson is truly one of the best play callers out there. He has the ability to run the ball down your throat with some, trick plays here and there. He has a really good passing scheme too. And I think if there is a level of buy-in from this offense, then you're going to see some big time improvements from this offense. Last year, the offense just felt stagnant, felt a little boring, did not feel modern enough. You're basically overhauling that with one of, if not the most modern day type offensive coordinators slash head coaches. So big time addition there. I think it's going to be one that pays off and has dividends down the road. Now let's go ahead and hop into my second reason as to why the Chicago Bears are ready to take off in 2025. And that is because I think they have a pretty stacked defense. Now, last year, if you look at the statistics and look at the numbers, you would say, man, this defense really fell off a cliff last year. And in some ways, you're not really wrong. The start of the year was really impressive. You, of course, had Matt Eberflus cooking. And then they fired Matt Eberflus, and it kind of just fell off the road there a little bit. Down the stretch, this was a bad defense, and I don't think it was a good enough representation of who this defense actually is. You look on paper at this defense, there's way too much talent for this defense not to be considered a top 10 unit unanimously. You have a Montez Sweat, you have now a Dayo Odeyingbo, you have Austin Booker developing, a number of younger and some vets as well in the interior of that defensive line. That should be an improved defensive line that can get after the quarterback. Pair that up with a TJ Edwards, with a Tremaine Edmonds, that's a solid linebacking core. And then, frankly, one of maybe the most stacked secondaries in the NFL. It's not probably but it's one of Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard. I mean, it's truly a stacked secondary, not to mention Za Frazier, who I was a pretty big fan of coming out of college too. So I love what they're building on the secondary. I think they can be dominant. They can create turnovers. They can be physical downfield, make some plays in the run game. I think this is a talented unit that has everything you needed to get the job done. You bring in now Dennis Allen, who was the New Orleans Saints head coach last year. And as we all know, a really smart defensive mind that had a lot of great moments in the past. So he brings his experience and notoriety to a Chicago team that has a lot of experienced players on the defensive end. I do think there is a depth issue with this unit, and not necessarily in the secondary, specifically with the edge rushing room. Like, I think if a Montez Sweat were to miss time, or a Dayo Odeyingbo were to miss time, I don't know if you really have anybody right now who you can seriously rely upon. Austin Booker is young and talented, but I don't think you can rely on him quite yet. You have Dominic Robinson, Daniel Hardy, Xavier Carlton. I just don't feel great if you have to go into your bag of riches on that edge rushing room. And I think that could be a bit of an issue for this team come, later in the season, or maybe if they were to make the playoffs, because I do believe that you need at least 4 pass rushers that you can truly rely upon. And I can rely on Montez. I can rely on Dio. I hope I can rely on Austin. Can I rely on Dominique or somebody else here to really step up and play a bigger role in this edge rushing room? If that's the case, if you can find somebody who can be that third or fourth guy off the bench that steps in, plays, 20 or so snaps a game and gets the job done, can get to the quarterback here and there, then cool. But I just have a level of concern there that I don't really have with other teams specifically. So other than that, though, Tremaine Edmonds is a high-paid linebacker that you probably don't want to pay as much as he's getting paid. But, when you have a rookie quarterback, you have a bit more flexibility. The secondary is really good. Byard is a bit older, so keep an eye on that one. But you have Jonathan Owens, who's a pretty fine player. So, yeah, I'm not really too worried about this defense. I think they have the talent to get the job done, experience and notoriety with Dennis Allen. And I think this defense should return back to form and be a top 5 to top 12 defense in the NFL, which is where they probably should be. Let us now enter into my third reason why the Chicago Bears are ready to take off in 2025, and that is progression from Caleb Williams. Now, I want to start this off by talking about what we have heard in training camp. And what we have heard from training camp has not necessarily been overly positive. Now, there are going to be people out there who do not like Caleb Williams that are going to spin this conversation into Caleb Williams being a bust or a wasted pick, or, they should have took Daniels or May or, JJ or whoever, right? That is what's going to happen. But let me tell you something right now. Training camp does not effing matter. It does not matter whatsoever. I have heard over and over and over again of quarterbacks struggling in, preseason or training camp, and they go out there and just cook. I'm a Cowboys fan, all right? I hear it all the time. Dak Prescott in 2023 had one of his worst training camps where he was throwing pick after pick after pick. At least that was what was reported. And he goes out there in 2023 and finished second in MVP voting. Training camp really does not matter. Now, what does matter, can you build chemistry? Can you build continuity? Can you build a connection, relationships? And can you just get into a little bit of a rhythm heading into the season? Outside of that, just stay healthy. Training camp is about getting some of the kinks out of your game. I saw an article about Luther Burden and how his progression has taken some time and how he's struggling with some alignment issues and this and that. That's what training camp is for. The whole purpose of camp is to get all of the fundamental stuff down, make the mistakes now, so that way when you come into the season, you're not making those mistakes. Now, what I will say, I'm not expecting Caleb Williams to step into a very difficult Ben Johnson system and succeed right away. If you've watched my videos throughout the offseason, either here or on my podcast where we talk about the Chicago Bears sometimes, you would know that I have said I think this Bears team is going to struggle early on. I think it's going to be like an offensive struggle really early. I think probably for weeks 1, probably up to their bye week, where this offense is going to have good moments, but also a lot of bad moments. And there's going to be a lot of conversations about, Caleb and Ben Johnson. The reason why I think it could be a little bit of a slow start is just the clashing of styles. Ben Johnson is he wants a robot at quarterback, essentially. Somebody that does not make mistakes, reads every single play 100% properly, can make, easy tight window throws. Caleb isn't really like that. Caleb is a playmaker. He's a guy that wants to run around the yard, break sacks, throw the ball 50 yards downfield for touchdowns. Like, that's what Caleb's done his entire career. In Ben Johnson's system, you don't really have to do that. So I think there will be some issues early on, but kind of like what Andy Reid has done with Patrick Mahomes, I think Ben Johnson has the ability to do something similar. So in terms of what I want to see from Caleb Williams next year, I want to see him get into a rhythm. I want to see this offense take a big step forward, at some point next year. It doesn't have to be in week 1. It doesn't have to be in weeks 2 through 4 or 5, right? But when we get to about week 6, 7, 8, or 9, I really want to see this offense find its leggings, find its stride, pick up some rhythm, and I want to see in that second half of next year, this Bears team really pick it up and become, a more potent offense than what they were early in the year. Now, I could be wrong. This offense might come out the gates just cooking on all levels, and that would be sweet, but I'm not necessarily expecting that. I just want to see this offense go from not good last year, probably mediocre to start the year off this year, and then by the end of the year, we're saying, hey, this Bears offense finished 12th in points per game, and down the stretch, they were the 5th highest scoring team from weeks 12 to 17. Like, that's something I want to hear. So for now, have some patience. I think Caleb Williams is progressing well enough. I think he's in the perfect situation now with a great offensive coordinator, a great supporting cast, a defense that can help win you games, a good offensive line now. Just, you got to take your time. So in terms of like numbers that I'm expecting from Caleb Williams, I'm expecting something along the lines of maybe close to 4,000 passing yards. I mean, he had 3,500 last year, which it doesn't feel like he had it, but he did. So I'm expecting something like maybe 4,000 passing yards, 25 plus touchdowns, and keep the interceptions less than 10. The biggest thing is I want to see more dynamic plays downfield. He had a long of 47 last year, and I just want to see more of that. I want to see bigger, more explosive plays. You have the weapons on the outside, a Loveland, a Burden, a Rome, even a DJ Moore. All those guys can win deep. I want to see this offense win a bit more downfield. I want to see them run the ball effectively. I also think that there's something there with Caleb Williams and the RPO, even in sort of, a read rushing game where Caleb Williams can carry the ball a little bit, because I think he's a fairly decent athlete that, can do some nice things here and there. So I think there's a lot to unpack with this Ben Johnson offense with Caleb Williams specifically. There's a lot to like. The fit is a little clunky, and I think there will be some early issues that need to get ironed out, but I want to see it really work out. And I think the last thing I'll say about Caleb Williams real quick, there's going to be a lot of people that want to put a crap ton of pressure on this guy. And to me, it's weird. He's a second-year quarterback that had a solid rookie year, all things considered. No, it did not, maybe meet the expectations some people had. He was not Patrick Mahomes right out the gate, but I think numbers-wise, he was all right. And I'm seeing articles, literally right now, I'm looking at one, asking the question of how much pressure is on Caleb Williams in week 1. To me, it's like there's no pressure on him. Just go out there, perform, and then by the end of the year, we'll see where you're at. And, yes, there's pressure on every player, so there's pressure on Caleb Williams to perform, but there's no heightened pressure on Caleb Williams than there is on a Daniels or a JJ or a Drake. Like, all those guys have pressure. Just because you're the first overall pick does not mean that you have to dominate instantly. Like, that's just not the case, right? So we'll see what ends up happening. I think this Bears team is heading in the right direction. Again, my 3 reasons why is I think they have an improved offense where they fix their issues. I think they have a stacked defense. And I think Caleb Williams will progress nicely in year number 2. But you let me know in the comment section below, how many games are the Chicago Bears going to win in 2025? Do you think they'll win the division? Let me know too. And if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.